So I've just got back from the Battlefield 6 multiplayer reveal event in Los Angeles, and it's time to bring together my early impressions on the game. EA sponsored me to go to the reveal event, so thanks to them, and in this video I'm going to go through the positives and negatives of my experience with Battlefield 6 so far, and the beta is just around the corner. So hopefully all of you guys watching this video will get a chance to play the game very soon. If you go on to find this video helpful or enjoyable or informative, then please click that like button. And if you're interested in more Battlefield 6 content, then please make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss my videos from the beta and beyond. Right then, let's start first of all with maps and atmosphere in Battlefield 6. Things are vastly improved compared to the last couple of titles in the franchise. Liberation Peak, Siege of Cairo, Empire State, and Iberian Offensive, those are the 4 maps that I got to play at the event. All of them have their own distinct look and feel, with huge amounts of detail throughout. No map felt the same, and each seemed to feature an almost complete set of assets specific to that location. Now, my favourite one was probably Empire State, set in the shadows of the Brooklyn Bridge. It's an infantry-only map that featured plenty of verticality, a variety in different pathways, and big destruction elements as well, like a bridge connecting 2 buildings that can be fully wiped out. Liberation Peak was probably the most eye-catching of the maps. The atmosphere reminded me somewhat of Battlefield 1, where the devs managed to incorporate this real sense of war happening on the map, and background elements like artillery shells, they're whistling across the sky. There's some distant buildings that are outside the map boundaries that still feel like they're integrated because they all feel animated. There does appear to be a swing towards more infantry-dominant gameplay in Battlefield 6, at least from the maps that I played at the event, and that's personally something that I do quite enjoy, but I know from conversations that I had with a couple of developers at the event in Los Angeles that there are other maps coming to Battlefield 6 at launch that will feature vehicles more heavily, and the ones that were mentioned were Operation Firestorm, that's returning from Battlefield 3, and Mirak Valley, the second map from the Tajikistan biome. Apparently that's going to be one of the larger maps in the game. There's a true urban combat vibe for Battlefield 6, something that I fondly remember from the Battlefield 3 days, and this game really does truly feel like a successor to that game and Battlefield 4 at the same time. If they kind of combined Battlefield 3 and 4 in terms of map design, this is kind of what you get in Battlefield 6. Although I will say from the maps that I played, everything was kind of trending a little bit smaller. But as I mentioned, there is Operation Firestorm and Mirak Valley, which are on the larger end of the scale that we haven't played yet. Everything available at the event was on the smaller side though. The maps do feel like they're almost completely finished at this stage. There is still some polish that is needed in certain areas though. I noticed a few times that I get stuck on small objects on the ground that 100% shouldn't have stopped me in my tracks. And a few times I'd fail at vaulting over certain elements of cover, etc. But these kind of felt like issues that will get picked up with a passover before the launch of the game. Next, I want to talk about movement in Battlefield 6. It's something that I've seen discussed a lot online after the reveal event. Lots of feedback coming in around the speed of the game. So yes, the general speed and pacing of this game is a little bit faster than previous games in the franchise, and the movement system that you get reflects that. You have a full sprint mechanic, but there's no tactical sprinting in Battlefield 6. I'm glad to see that that's finally gone. If you do want to move faster than full sprint, however, you can switch to your melee weapon instead of your primary, and that will improve your sprint speed and you'll be able to move a little bit faster. There is a slide into cover in the game, although you can pretty much slide wherever you like. You can use it to avoid bullets or however you want to use it. There's a crouch sprint for keeping you hidden below low cover. There's mantling up and over cover, but I did find that the max activation height for this mantling felt a little bit lower than previous Battlefield titles, seemingly meaning that the devs have identified that being able to mantle over everything wasn't good for map gameplay flow. And that's something that I've been complaining about for years since it was introduced in Battlefield 1. So I'm glad to see that they've thought about that and implemented a little bit of a change. You can do some advanced movement combinations, like sprint jumping into a slide to give you more momentum, perhaps making you harder to hit. And there was a little bit of bunny hopping in the game, although I didn't really feel like that was something that people were fully utilizing at that point. So more playtime in the beta is going to reveal if that's an issue for people or not. You can prone dive in the game as well. You can lay in prone on your back like you could in Battlefield 5. And a few times I did find people laying on their back in corners set up to be like a sentry turret, so you're going to want to watch out for that. And you can activate a combat roll as well when falling from above a certain height, and this negates any fall damage or movement penalty when taking that damage, so make sure you use that combat roll if you get the chance. Next up, let's talk about weapons and gunplay, another big improvement over the previous title. The gunplay feels very visceral and weighty in this game, with each category of weapon feeling quite distinct from the other. Apart from perhaps the carbine category, that felt very close to what assault rifles offered. SMGs were built for close-range combat, and they really played into that role with attachments for tighter hipfire or even movement speed, with one option allowing for full sprinting whilst aiming with the MPX. That was quite an interesting one. The one sniper on offer in the build, it kind of felt like a jack of all trades, master of none, and perhaps it was chosen to just give players a chance to experience what sniping was like in Battlefield 6 without giving too much away in terms of variety of weapons at launch. And there was even an LMG in the game that could be equipped with the right ammunition type that gave you a 2.1x headshot multiplier. It's kind of insane. The game uses a pick 100 style attachment system where each attachment has a cost and each weapon can be equipped with up to 100 points worth of attachments. Now this is something different that Battlefield hasn't tried before, but it does allow in some cases to equip something in almost every single slot that a weapon has, and that can be sometimes 8 or 9 attachments. So versatility and malleability appears to be the aim from the dev team this time around. Time to kill, or TTK, it's pretty fast in Battlefield 6. Most weapons at close range are going to be a 4 or 5 shot kill, and then at longer ranges, damage drop-off comes into play. Of course, recoil is more prominent at longer ranges, and it's going to take a fair amount longer. The game kind of encourages you to close the gap with this system, but some burst fire with ARs and LMGs, that's going to net you some long-range kills if you can manage the recoil. Mag dumping, or just holding mouse 1, will work in close quarters, but at range, spread is going to kick in, and you're going to miss more shots than you hit. The gunplay system seems to reward more controlled fire at range, in my opinion. Having fast TTK like this in Battlefield 6, I think overall is a good thing. It's a casual shooter at the end of the day, and having a gunplay system that allows anyone, regardless of their skill level, to get a few kills means everyone is going to have a better time. Battlefield 3 was the first game in the franchise to really adopt this mantra, pushing ARs to have that 25 max damage model at close range, resulting in the 4-shot kills that I was talking about. And with Battlefield 6 being the successor product, I think it's a good idea that they've taken that model and then applied it here. There are some elements, I think, of visual recoil in the game, which I don't like. Reticles being detached from the center of your scope, or the optic, which kind of leads to bullets like vanishing sometimes mid-gunfight, or if you're moving a little bit too much, it's hard to tell where your bullets are actually going because it feels a bit decoupled from the middle of the screen. I'm not sure if that's intentional at the moment, like an intentional part of the gunplay system, or if it's a bug. I didn't have a chance to ask any of the developers about this, but it caused me a few frustrations at the event, and there was a completely broken shotgun in the game at the event that was way more accurate than was intended in hipfire. So hopefully they patch that before the beta, otherwise we're going to have some problems. Next up, classes. This is something that's divided opinion already, but now having put some time into the game at the reveal event, I do have some thoughts. The way each class has a signature weapon category, I feel like its design makes a lot of sense, and it's intended to keep you using the class as it's always been intended in a Battlefield game. Assault, when using assault rifles, they get faster draw and switch time on weapons, plus a faster sprint recovery. Engineer benefits from tighter hipfire on SMGs. Support has no sprint speed penalties when using LMGs, and Recon gets a reduction in scope sway on sniper rifles. These, combined with signature traits for each class, are positioned to keep you using the weapon category that's designed for the class. But however, of course, you are now able to switch things up and use other weapon categories if you want to. You'll just miss out on those included benefits of the signature system. I found using carbines on the support class, for example, really elevated me into the combat medic role, allowing me to stay closer to my teammates and provide another angle of attack rather than using the distance of LMGs and playing that more supportive role. However, flipping it round the other way and using the signature weapons for the class, I think it benefits the engineers most. Having access to better hipfire on SMGs was a major bonus on the Siege of Cairo map. It meant that you could stay close to friendly vehicles for repairs, and then you could beat off enemies at close range just using hipfire. It kind of makes sense the more you think about it. The design and the look of the characters, though, I do have a little bit of an issue here. I think the classes themselves, they look really good because gone are the specialists from 2042, and we have these nameless, almost faceless soldiers back again for Battlefield 6. And each class has a silhouette, but honestly, they weren't particularly clear. The silhouettes are definitely nowhere near as defined as they were, say, back in Battlefield 1, where you knew instantly what class you were looking at. Because this time, weapon categories are open in Battlefield 6, and so the stance taken by some of the soldiers isn't tied intrinsically into the class, and that meant it was harder to know what sort of threat a soldier possessed as they were facing you. I don't know if this is something they can improve before the launch of the game, or indeed what kind of customization we will be looking at for launch as well, which could somewhat confuse the look that we've got for these classes at the moment, but I do feel like a little bit more work is needed there. Overall, the classes in Battlefield 6 actually felt decent and felt like they were part of the game, even though they are different to the classes that we've come to expect previously because of the open weapon system. But one thing you will be able to try in the open beta is there will be matchmaking for open weapons, and there will be matchmaking for locked weapons, because DICE and EA has decided you're going to be able to play both ways and decide what you want to play. And moving forward to launch, apparently as well, both of those options will be available too. And I also want to touch on the audio in this game. For me, it's sensational. DICE is well known for their audio design, and Battlefield 6 doesn't disappoint. The sounds of jet engines flying overhead, guns firing off all around you, the screams and shouts of soldiers, the death screams, which some of them are taken from Battlefield 4, which I love, tank cannons, smoke grenades popping off, defibs beeping, it's all in there. It immerses you almost as well as it did back in Battlefield 1, which for me is the absolute gold standard of audio when it comes to Battlefield games. Footsteps, however, you might struggle to hear those during chaotic moments when the action gets heated, but since Battlefield is more about large-scale combat in its traditional multiplayer versus sound whoring for enemies on small 6v6 maps, this is something that I kind of expected. If you've got decent headphones for playing this game, you're going to be in for a treat in the open beta, but please don't go playing it on your tiny built-in TV speakers. It's not going to do the game justice. Overall, though, I am genuinely impressed with what I've played of Battlefield 6 so far. The quality is quite far above what I expected, especially after all the early leaks that we saw from the lab's playtesting. It feels like the game is heading in a solid direction, even if that direction is towards a slightly faster paced, slightly more infantry-focused one. Vehicles in the game don't feel like they're too powerful to deal with as infantry, but if you're looking for opinions on vehicle gameplay, you're going to have to go and find some other creators that use them more than I do. That said, I do still have a few concerns, mainly around the class visual identity and whether their designs are distinct enough to clearly tell them apart in the chaos of battle. I've got to be honest, I could barely tell the difference in most of the games that I was playing at the event. It's something that Battlefield 2042 really struggled with because of the specialists, but now we're back to classes, and I still don't feel like they're different looking enough. We also need to see how the beta holds up, especially in terms of performance, because whilst I had a smooth experience during the recording event, that was on a pretty high-end PC, so broader performance is still a question mark, especially for console players, where setting controls aren't as abundant as on PC. And of course, Battlefield has a history of rough launches. EA needs to prove that they've learned from the past, and they can deliver a stable, polished launch this time around. Something like they did with Battlefield 1. But please let me know what you think about Battlefield 6 down below in the comments. What do you like? What don't you like about the game? Maybe what would you change? Leave it all down below in the comments section. Once again, if you found this video informative or helpful, please drop a like for the almighty YouTube algorithm and subscribe so you don't miss all the content that I've got coming from the beta starting August 7th, which is also my birthday. So what a lovely present. Catch you guys in the next one.